Vedic astrology. Welcome to my weekly broadcast on transits. This week's special transits broadcast is on Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, which happens starting June the 1st and goes through October 31st on the first pass. Most of you know my website, appliedvedicastrology.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the subscribe button to continue to receive notifications of our broadcasts, and you can email me at barry@appliedvedicastrology.com. So Jupiter in Cancer only happens every 12 years. It last happened in June 2014 to about July 2015. If you're trying to see how that impacted you, you can go back and reflect on that period of time. Of course, the world is different now because of the outer planet transits. We have Saturn and Neptune together in Pisces, and Uranus in Taurus, and Pluto is moving its way in Capricorn, changing world government. The world is changing quite a bit, and a lot of people may kind of get all excited about Jupiter exalted in Cancer. I think exalted planets tend to get overemphasized. I think I use the expression, they have too much gun. They sometimes, they're out of balance. We usually like planets when they're Mula Trikona. I mean, we definitely like Jupiter in Sag and Pisces better, particularly Sag. Jupiter in Cancer can be a little extreme sometimes. I find that people tend to be a little bit more overly religious with Jupiter. If they were born with Jupiter in Cancer, they may have more rigid beliefs and be a little bit dogmatic. Country of Iran, when it was founded in 1979, has Jupiter in Cancer, and they're kind of a fundamentalist religious country, and chances are they will get a little bit more empowered by this Jupiter return to their ascendant. So that's kind of something to think about. The thing about Jupiter in Cancer is that exalted planets are 3 times more or stronger. So this is particularly good for Vedic studies, religious and spiritual studies, taking on new spiritual groups, taking on new Vedic astrology classes. The energy is very expansive for that, and it's a good time to kind of take on higher education studies. The sign of Cancer is also connected to the heart structure, and that's why Jupiter feels particularly great in the sign of Cancer. The heart gets very expanded. That can be a good thing. We become more compassionate and loving. At the same time, we know we have to temper our compassion with practical life. And one of the challenges we have in the world with emigration is we can be compassion letting all these poor people into our countries, and at the same time, they sometimes bring in their poor ethics and behaviors, and that's a major problem, as you know, in Europe now, and certainly was a problem in the United States to some degree. One of the things about Jupiter in Cancer is that Jupiter is exactly exalted at 5 degrees Cancer, and that happens, I believe, in late June. There's when we look back at the world in 2014 to 2015, it wasn't, Jupiter in Cancer can bring more difficult challenges. It kind of can empower people's beliefs. It can empower, give you too much optimism and say, I'm going to go ahead and do it. One of the things you have to be cautious about is, like, can you really take on all the things that you want to do when you feel so expanded? For the sign of Cancer, Jupiter tends to increase weight gain, and its trines to Scorpio and Pisces will kind of also increase weight gain along with optimism. So you have to kind of watch eating that extra piece of cheesecake. Last time we had Jupiter in Cancer, June 19th, 2014 to July 13th, 2015. We had the rise of the Islamic State, declaring a caliphate and seizing large parts of Iran and Syria, and we had a military response to that. We had the Israeli Defense Forces attacking Hamas in Gaza that year. Again, we had the Ebola virus disease breaking out in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This is some of the Vedic texts say that Jupiter in the constellation of Ashlesha, which happens in August, in September, October, tends to bring epidemics. It does seem that Ebola thing could be a lot messier than we would like to have it happen. So I'm a little concerned that we're going to be entering COVID 2.0 in terms of some of the scares that will come up. And we'll just have to see how that develops. But there are kind of forces in the world that like to see these pandemics and epidemics develop because it empowers the pharmacy industry and the and government to kind of take more control. And we saw that happening during COVID. We have to be concerned that something that could happen again. And part of the problem is the effect on the economy. Remember, the stock market crashed when COVID came out. We do see the stock market topping in July with the over-optimism and then falling into November when you have Jupiter and Ketu and Mars conjunct in early around November 14th in the sign of Leo. Believe it or not, Jupiter-Mars aspects are often connected to mismanagement of finance and problems in finance, and Ketu as a way of kind of evaporating whatever it kind of connects with. Last time in 2015, we also had a major earthquake in Nepal. We often do get earthquakes or earthquake cycles up, and we had a number of typical things that happen when terrorist groups get emboldened. So I don't think that Jupiter in Cancer is the panacea for bringing world peace. We do have the peace signature with Jupiter conjunct Venus on June the 10th. I have seen peace accords signed during that time. My sense is that the Trump administration will pull something off, and then Iran will not keep its word, and the process of enforcing things will fall apart, and I don't think this war will be over. Again, if you've read my posts, I don't feel like until Iran goes into a Saturn major period in November of 2027, when they finish Jupiter Rahu off, that there will be a significant regime change. So these fanatics don't go away easily, and we shall see what develops there. The thing about Jupiter in Cancer is that it increases morality and ethics, and with Jupiter in Cancer, it can be genuine because of the emotional support. So Jupiter is really exalted in Cancer because core ethics and morals and right action can be genuine with emotional support. So there's a real kind of positive side that may be getting things right in the world. I mean, the U.S. is still in a Rahu major period where corruption and lies kind of run their course, and that doesn't end until 2032. And a lot of countries are still in Rahu periods, like Europe's still kind of a mess in that way. Jupiter in Cancer can increase intuition, benefit family life, support real estate. One of the things that could happen is that we'll have a final flourish in real estate prices. with Jupiter in Cancer into October. Maybe that will be because President Trump will come up with a 50-year mortgage or some legislation to support home buyers, which supports the election. If that does happen, I mean, this is the end of the real estate boom cycle, and what happens is you get the real estate bust cycle afterwards, with K2 going into the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a sign connected to real estate and home. K2 likes to take away. So the next 3 or 4 years suggest a real estate bust. And we also have the problem with interest rates. I mean, this oil inflation is not going to go away. Even if they open the Straits of Hormuz, it might even take a month to even get ships going through there again. So in the most optimistic case, there's still oil shortages and there will be oil inflation. And even in a perfect world, if crude were to stay at $70, which is what the most we'll see, gasoline will still be at $3.50. And I'm not even that optimistic because, Iran doesn't kind of keep their word. Jupiter in Cancer can produce great coaches and teachers. It's a good time to kind of start a coaching business or increase your teaching activities, increase your family love. Jupiter, fourth house, fourth sense zodiac Cancer is all about family and love. The difficult thing about the Jupiter in Cancer thing is the Jupiter Cancer opposition, Jupiter Pluto opposition, which I believe is June the 20th. July the 20th, I believe. And last time we had a Jupiter-Pluto opposition in 1789 between Capricorn and Cancer. We had the French Revolution. So sometimes it can enliven oppressed people to rise up and feel like, what do they have to lose? They're so optimistic with Jupiter in Cancer. Part of that, to me, is more. I'm not sure that's the type of thing we're going to see happen in the United States this summer. Unless there are war protests, because we put boots on the ground. I don't know if President Trump is stupid enough to do that. But real trouble. There are lots of problems in Europe brewing with higher inflation and the migration crisis there. England is definitely kind of an absolute mess. France also, Germany, a lot of the European countries. I think there's more chance of rioting in there, usually with Sun in Leo, and I'm sorry, with K2 in Leo, we have K2 tends to be it's headless. It tends to take off people's head, which is a metaphor for reducing ego. So usually we lose a couple leaders during this time, and a lot of people are thinking it will be President Trump, but I think he will have a crisis with K2 going over his ascendant, which is at 6 degrees at the end of June, and over his natal Mars later in the summer. But it all depends on the dashas. Dashas are 80%, and Jupiter in, he's in a Jupiter-Venus period, Jupiter-Venus-Saturn. So there's some 12th house frustration, loss, expenditure coming up, illness, but the Jupiter Mahadasha is strong enough to support his continued experiences. In terms of the other interesting thing about Jupiter in Cancer is that we get a lot of the transit in the constellation of Ashlesha, because Jupiter goes into Ashlesha sometime in August. I should look up the exact date, and stays there until Jupiter leaves Cancer October 31st, and then it will retrograde back into Ashlesha. Now, Ashlesha is one of those kind of ugly nakshatras connected to kind of gossiping and poisons. It's connected to the snakes, the starfish. It tends to bring kind of really deep spiritual lessons, forcing transformation. In other words, the planets are always our teachers in bringing good, and the sarpas are kind of wanting to transform us by ripping apart old truths that are not useful anymore and creating powerful awakenings again. So we have a lot of time, and again, ancient Vedic texts talk about epidemics happening with Jupiter and Ashlesha, and we go back historically, and that we have seen that. That also is true with Jupiter and Jeshta, I believe. So we are worried about this Ebola thing, and you should, be kind of prepared on some level. By rising sign, you also want to know what this means for your chart. Jupiter, if you're a Cancer rising, Jupiter in the first house tends to expand your self-love and your identity and feeling good about yourself, and at the same time, it may not have a reality check. We also have to watch weight gain. Wherever Jupiter transits or shines its rays on, like Pisces and Scorpio, it tends to increase weight. So watch out there. Jupiter in Leo, if you have Leo rising or Leo moon, it's a 12th house transit. You have to worry about overspending and increased expenditures. You can be, you think you can spend too much because you're doing so well in the stock market, or that you're going to get that raise, and you can be over optimistic and overspend. So particularly if you're Leo rising, you have to watch false optimism about overspending. Your Taurus rising or moon, this is a third house transit, good time for writing, but third house transits of Jupiter are not great. It's actually considered Marna Karkastana. You can end up kind of partying too much and not being real. It can cause laziness, problems with siblings. If you're Gemini rising, it's 11th house transit, usually, it's a second house transit, usually good for financial gains and opportunity, but resist laziness through money. Capricorn rising and moon, 7th house transit is good for business partnerships. But keep your word. Pluto can sometimes be disruptive there. If you're female, then 7th house transit of Jupiter for Capricorn rising may feel some tension with their spouse. Again, it's a 7th house transit. Aquarius rising or moon, Jupiter goes through the 6th house. You have to be frugal, service work and self-improvement, monitor children carefully, watch your health, of course. Pisces and Sag rising particularly like this transit. Sag, it's an 8th house transit, can be very kind of transformational in a positive way. There's a lot of energy for positive transformation to change your life, but sometimes whenever we make changes like that, our lives get disruptive because we're letting go of the old and bringing the new one, and that's what an 8th house transit can do. Pisces rising, it's a lovely 9th house transit, good for desiring spiritual journeys, going to India. We haven't recommended travel past June, July this year. You can start seeing that happening with the Ebola crisis. Airfares are way too expensive, and we start having rioting in Europe. It's just not good. So again, in our year ahead video, we had suggested getting your travel in by the end of June, early July. Jupiter governs liver and pancreas for everybody. Liver has over 750 functions. Sometimes Jupiter and Cancer should support the liver, but you can always help your liver by having warm lemon water in the morning, avoiding heavy dairy and foods, and not indulging in too many sweets to overexert your pancreas. I know I'm having that problem at the moment. Best yoga posture for Jupiter is the spinal twist, and that's always a good one. Remedies that we can do with Jupiter and Cancer is nurturing acts for the moon, supporting women, feeding people, maybe donating to food banks, caring for other families that are in trouble, spending more time near the water to kind of enjoy that wonderful water energy. Again, always meditation prayers are always good. Devotional singing are particularly good during Jupiter and Cancer. And on Thursdays, donate yellow clothes and food and money to teachers. The Jupiter transit in Cancer also supports bhakti, so you may feel a lot of fervor toward God. Again, we talked about Jupiter supports religion and spirituality, and your deep love of God or your guru may kind of be enlivened during this transit, which is a nice thing to do. As we look ahead into November, we have we get Jupiter going through the Gandanta for a long period of time. The Gandanta is the last 3 degrees of Cancer and the first 3 degrees of Leo, and Gandanta is usually kind of an emotionally difficult point. We have a long transit of Jupiter because it, up there, Jupiter goes into Leo on November 1st, and then gets conjunct Mars and Ketu around November 14th. It's kind of a triple fire energy. It can support courage, power, and dharma. It can also lead to financial loss, as I mentioned earlier in the tape. And I think it's a low for the stock market. I think the stock market's typing in a big way for the rest of the decade at the beginning of July, and will be down sharply into November. We have a big crisis brewing in the bond market. I mean, who wants to buy our bonds and finance our $39 trillion of debt and support our war efforts? So there's, we still have not done anything to support our budget, and I don't know why that is, but I think politicians like to spend. So overall, we really like Jupiter in Cancer for supporting domestic life, family life, emotional and security needs, charity and humanitarian needs, religious and spiritual life. It will support healing modalities, Ayurveda, psychology, and spiritual counseling, religious life. It can also increase church attendance. I think last time we had Jupiter going into Cancer, we had one pass of that last fall. We had a lot of people flocking to church after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So a lot of good things happen here with Jupiter in Cancer. Again, it's a mixed bag on other levels. Those of you who like my work, I have published a number of books, including Finding Your Blind Spots Using Vedic Astrology. It's on Amazon. That's my best book and my most recent book, quite deep. My big passion is teaching classes. For those of you who are into finance, I'm teaching a course on called Case Studies in Financial Astrological Analysis, where I'm teaching people how to use the planets to predict the stock market and the bond market and all kinds of other things. And there's a first preview for that is next Thursday on June the 4th. If you can email me for the link, it's on my website under live webinars, Case Studies in Financial Astrology. We're also going to be, We also have announced for the first time since 2019, I'm teaching Vedic astrology from the beginning. Cultivating a new group of students. My first introductory class will be on Sunday, June the 7th at 10:30 a.m. or is it maybe 10 a.m. It's also in the newsletter, and you can email me for a link. I'll put the email link up. It's also on our website under live classes or under foundation class. You can sign up for the first free class. Those classes will be offered live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I know many of you are working. Everything is always recorded to watch again. But the preview will be on Sunday, June the 7th. I will give a lot of, I teach Vedic astrology in a very unique way. It has a very psychological and archetypal energy to it, and I tend to, during the preview, I'm going to offer a lot of insights into major karmic patterns from the planets, based on some original work I've done. So I teach Vedic astrology on a very deep level. Those of you who think you have had a lot of experience with Vedic astrology, my foundation class is an advanced class. People don't get a lot of it material done properly. I'm also just announced my first summer course, which will be taught on Saturdays at 11 o'clock a.m. every week live. It's called Vedic and Western Remedies for challenges. The preview for that is going to be on Saturday, June the 27th at 11 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And the newsletter will have a link for that to sign up for that, and we'll get it out to you. It'll be on GoToWebinar. That course will run 9 weeks, and it'll be $325 if you sign up by June the 15th. Covering in that course principles of prescribing remedies, theories and tradition, so remedies for houses and dashes, remedies for nakshatras and the planets, principles of gem therapy, Western Vedic remedies for relationship, Western Vedic remedies for finance, Western Vedic remedies for health, learning disabilities, sleep disorders, and self-esteem. So what I'm trying to do with this class, I've had 40 years of experience taking healing webinars, and I've just have this vast knowledge of all kinds of remedies. I know a lot of traditional Vedic remedies. Most people don't like mantras and yagyas, and they're not into that. So I always have, for my clients, I always have something they can do that will actually work. So I do have a lot of practical remedies, and that's pretty much half the course, and I'm going to try to bring that in. I tend to kind of come up with practical remedies. So if you have problems with your moon in your chart, I suggest that you do cooking and singing. You know, those are easier things to do. I mean, most of you, you don't want to do mantras to Parvati or things like that. I mean, most people don't want to do that, but to strengthen a weak planet, you have to engage the Karaka. So the course is very practical. Again, that's going to, preview for that is Saturday, June the 27th at 11 a.m. Now, I didn't have a chance to put up all the links. A lot of the links for these are in my newsletter. If you do get my newsletter, you can sign up on GoToWebinar. If by some chance you have trouble finding the links to sign up for the previews of the upcoming fall classes, you can go to my website, appliedvedicastrology.com, or email me at barry@appliedvedicastrology.com, and I can send you the link to sign up for our GoToWebinars. But most of them the links are in the newsletter, and I hope you'll enjoy sitting me with this summer. Again, Jupiter in Cancer promotes Vedic studies, so I'm going to 3 classes a week this summer. It's an expensive thing for me to do with Jupiter in Cancer. I will get away with it with Jupiter in Cancer, but and it's my absolute most fun thing to do. And those of you who've studied with me know that my classes are extremely rich and in depth. So I thank you for joining me today. I am hoping to do weekly transit videos for you. This week is specializing on Jupiter and Cancer, and we will see you next week, and have a great week.